Hello, everyone. We are back with Kale and Kettlebells episode 3. We are going to be discussing today, following some hits and misses in our predictions. We're just going to be discussing the first leg results from the round of 16 in the Champions League. And, Marco, I know you have the order in mind that you want to go through it. So
Totally.
I'll let you get the process started, and some
Sounds
humble
good.
pie will be served today.
Yeah, you
Some
know what?
prediction, but it's all part
We'll
of the
start
fun.
right away with that with
Yeah.
Arsenal and PSV. So
Yeah. You know what? So I watch, and you know this, but I'll say I watch like a decent amount of Arsenal fan TV just because like, I find those guys quite entertaining. And they're very passionate, and they have their limitations as humans, as we all do. But nonetheless, I mean, and they said it best: it's like you cannot predict this kind of result, right? You cannot ever predict a result of this magnitude. And I bet you a lot of them were predicting they would have a hard time against PSV given where they are, like the striker situation. But hey, good for Arsenal. For me, they showed, I mean, anything's possible in the sport. That's why it's a beautiful sport. And that, hey, maybe the title race in England is not done just yet. Although I know you disagree with that point, and fair enough. The gap is massive, and you might be right on that. And I want Liverpool to win the title regardless. But anyway, good for Arsenal. I mean that tie is done.
yeah,
PSV is not going to win by 6
no,
in London. There's no chance. It was an
yeah,
away. It was an away win as well.
yeah,
Keep in mind.
true. Yeah. And the extra advantage for Arsenal now is that well, I don't know how a team like Arsenal would approach the second leg, but I would assume that they would rest most of their key players, especially if they do have any intention of staying alive in the Prem race for first. But yeah, do you have
It's
any
an
guess
interesting
as to
question.
what?
I
Yeah,
don't know if they will. I don't know if they will. I don't think Arteta's that kind of guy. I think he'll make some small concessions, but you're not going to see like the B team.
yeah,
I just don't think that's how he operates personally.
interesting.
But we'll find out. That's kind of an interesting
It could
subplot.
keep them fresh though, right?
You're right. No, you're right. Like theoretically, yes, but like philosophically,
Hmm.
I don't think Arteta would do that.
Okay.
But we'll find out.
We'll follow
And
up on that in a
yeah,
future episode. I'll be
yeah,
curious actually.
yeah. There's no
Okay.
team that they're gonna feel is gonna lose by 6. But hey, anything's
No.
possible. If it happened one
Yeah.
time, it
But
can
if they
happen a
have
second.
their better players on the bench, then they can rectify that. Like if they were down a couple and they felt they wanted to swing momentum, then
Theoretically, yeah.
that wouldn't be an
No,
issue, I don't think. But anyways, we'll see. Okay, so we go into another spicy one. We've got Real Madrid versus Atletico Madrid. So yeah,
yeah, and this is the game that we watched. I mean, it was a yeah, it was a great game. I think Real Madrid did have the chance at the end to put it, to really end it to win 3-1. 2-1, you go back to the I think it's called the Vicente Calderon Stadium is Atletico Stadium. Atletico can win by one and take it to extra time. It's easier said than done, realistically speaking. And Jude Bellingham will be back, so he wasn't playing. Now,
true.
granted, his replacement, Brahim Diaz, scored the goal,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
fair
Very
enough.
interesting. Yeah, I'm not ruling out. And if we rewind for a moment, both of us. Okay, so I don't think we explicitly mentioned this a few moments
Yeah,
ago, but both of us picked PSV to win that tie,
yeah,
which is basically
yeah,
completely out of the question now already.
yeah.
But and
Over
you
one.
you picked Real Madrid. I acknowledge that Real Madrid is deserves to be favored in this whole competition to go all the way to the final and win, but I still chose Atletico as a bit of a dark horse. I like their team, and they're not out of it. They could win by 2 as well and just win before extra time. It's unlikely, I guess. I guess Real Madrid is showing they can lock down defense even if they're not scoring a lot of goals as well, and they're still like an insane team even when they're not playing their best. They're
The
an
tie's
insane
still
team.
open, and the just the pure soccer fan in me, because like I'm a soccer fan in most cases before I'm a supporter of any team. So the fan in me is glad that the tie is still open.
Yeah,
I retain like the belief that Real Madrid will advance, and I want them to advance. Um, Simply because I want more than anything to see Real Madrid Liverpool in the semifinal. I just think it's just too
yeah,
spicy.
yeah.
So I remain
Fair
of that
enough.
belief. And
Fair enough.
PSG Liverpool is an interesting game. We'll talk about that soon.
Which is
But
actually going to come up next, so we can
oh
actually come
wow.
into that now. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, I thought like so watch the entirety of that game. I thought it was in like a bizarro world because it's like we've been watching Liverpool all season, what they did to City, like comprehensive victories. And so it was like, whoa, it was like a complete, like, it was like, a mind F. I won't swear in case it's a problem
Mhm.
for YouTube, but yeah, it was, PSG dominated the game. Kvara, and like, again, Kvara, we've seen him play in real life in Naples, coming from Serie A, so good for him. He got the goal denied by VAR.
Yeah.
Look, Liverpool was lucky. I mean, the manager said it, but it just goes to show, like, they're having a special season because to not only come out with a draw, but to win that game, and for Harvey Elliott scored. He substituted Salah, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
that's
just like when you
crazy.
see that, it's like the special seasons in the works, right?
Yeah.
And when you go to Anfield, Liverpool's home ground, it is the best atmosphere in football. I've never been. You can just tell by watching on TV. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think it's going to be tough for PSG,
Yeah.
but they showed a lot, right? So you can't rule them out, but you got to figure out Anfield. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
And Liverpool's playing the last place team in the league this weekend in England, so they can't take that for granted. But can they rest players? Can they make subs?
Sure.
They could,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And yeah, if you're Liverpool, you're evaluating sort of risk between the two competitions, the EPL and the UCL, right? So they're obviously going to put way more weight into PSG to make sure they go through rather than worrying about the last place team, which is way weaker. Let's be honest, right? In the EPL, I think maybe we can touch on this for a moment. The EPL, at least in the last few years, seems to have a problem where the
Yeah,
three teams that get promoted are like almost guaranteed to be demoted again. They're much weaker. They're at a big disadvantage. It's not really even their
yeah.
fault. I mean, it's just the way the leagues operate and how economies work, I guess, um, at that
No, you're
level.
right.
So
Yeah, you're right. It's a big problem that the pundits talk about that all the time. But I think I think Slot, the manager, like I think it's the same thing with Arteta. Like I don't see a greatly weakened team. Like I guess Salah doesn't start, I'd be surprised. But I don't. You don't know what we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Like we don't know the metrics, the recovery metrics, and all the stuff that goes into these decisions. And so I think those obviously play a role in deciding who starts and who doesn't. But a guy like Harvey Elliott that comes out has a big goal. I mean, you can justify starting him, potentially, right? So,
sure, yeah, yeah,
but PSG did work, man. Like Dembele, good for Dembele. I mean, he really brought that skill set to a big game,
yeah,
and he did well. Kvara
yeah,
did well.
yeah. Kvara
Barcola.
did,
I
yeah,
mean, yeah. I mean, John Neves is PSG is good, man. Marquinhos is like an animal,
yeah,
absolute animal. For
yeah,
a man who's like not physically, because I don't watch that much PSG for various reasons, but for a man who's not physically that built, he's a proper defender. He
yeah,
really impressed me. Really,
yeah.
and Allison, and we gotta give Allison props, right? He said he had the game of his life, so good for him.
Yeah. Do you have any guess as to we could pull it up easily, but how old do you think Allison is, and how old, if you were to guess, Marquinhos would be? I'm curious when you highlight these guys.
Well, I think they might be both 31 if I had to guess.
Okay, so they're not by any means past prime whatsoever. They're not old, but I mean they're not
Yeah.
young, but they're not
For the
old either.
modern player who takes
Yeah.
care of himself, that in a way that's still prime. I mean, look
Yeah,
at
yeah.
Salah at 32,
Sure.
right?
They're basically in their prime, not even
Yeah,
remotely past their prime. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Makes
And they
sense.
both play for Brazil. I mean, Brazil on paper, a lot of good players, a lot of really strong players.
For
It'll be very
sure.
interesting. The World Cup is around the corner.
Yeah.
That's kind of
So
exciting. It's next year.
true. And now, before we shift to the next tie, so we both, as most people would, assumed Liverpool would be the team advancing, and they're certainly
Yeah,
a bit more favored now than they were before the first leg took place.
yeah.
But anything can happen. PSG, the midfield seemed to really control Liverpool's midfield, and they basically controlled the tempo and they managed the game, and then they just sort of, yeah, didn't work out for them in the end. So let's
You
go
feel you
to,
feel for
yeah, go
them,
ahead.
but
Yeah.
yeah,
It's
you feel for
unfortunate
them, but that's the way it goes. It's a cruel
the way it
sport
goes
sometimes.
sometimes. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Okay, so we'll shift to Aston Villa versus Club Brugge.
Yeah, I mean, no surprise in this result. I think Aston Villa is obligated to advance from that tie. Believe they won away from home.
Good question. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
actually
I
sure.
think no, yeah, they're away. They're away. Yeah, they're away. So they won away 3-1. It's done. You know what I mean? Like they
Yeah,
got to at Villa Park. They got to be able to not lose by two.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
Liverpool. I mean, the reality is, I mean, for Aston Villa as a club, I mean, amazing to get to the last eight. I think the parties are going to probably end there, right? But it's an amazing accomplishment for them. But hey, anything's possible. We'll save that for another
Yeah,
predictions
yeah,
round.
for sure.
You know,
For sure. For
they
sure.
have
And
to
good
finish
for
the
them.
job.
They got the job done for sure.
Yeah. Rashford, Asensio. I mean, I love
Yeah.
to see. I mean, I like Marcus Rashford as a player. I mean, when he's good, he's great. It's just like he's such an interesting case. Like we talked
Yeah.
about before, his year-on-year inconsistency is unmatched. It's so unusual.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like a blood
Yeah.
sugar spike after a meal. Like it's
True,
just
true.
very unusual.
And this could be like another topic for another day, or we could dig into it now, but it's really personal preference. But I mean, recent history proves that Manchester United is the club you go to if you want to kill your performance for as long as you're there. I mean, you want to talk about Antony just turning, it's crazy. You know, it's
Yeah,
wild.
for the
A guy
most part,
like
it's true.
Antony turns from a very sought after prospect. They pay a lot of money for him,
Yeah,
transfer over to them. He becomes one of the biggest memes aside from, you know, Maguire, who's also on Man United, that I can recall in the last like 5 years. Um, and then as soon as he goes to another club, like he's playing as if he never went to Manchester. It's as if you just chop out that period of time and you're back in like the normal timeline of reality. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And
yeah.
Marcus Rashford, well, I don't know you. So as far as Marcus Rashford goes, you might be paying closer attention to these Aston Villa games. I'm not, but you're basically
He's playing well
saying
for
that he's
them.
playing
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
and yeah, I don't
Not out
think
of
the
this
same can
world,
be
but he's
said.
contributing meaningfully with assists and so on. Like he looks, you know, I don't
Yeah,
watch that much. I mean, it's tough, right? Because we're not like super fans of any given club, and you know, we're busy, so it's not like we're watching 20 games a week. But on the whole, I mean, it's safe to say, you know, if we look at his average match rating, I think it's fair to say it's likely higher for Villa,
yeah,
right? So
which is crazy considering, you know, you would think that look at Mbappe moves to another club and takes a lot of time to adjust before he starts to show his normal self again, right? I mean, these guys basically just got transferred, especially
mhm.
Antony. I mean, the guy could have won at that rate. The guy could have literally won the first Player of the Month award in the league. And La Liga
Yeah,
is, you know, roughly on par in terms of quality as a prem. I mean, you again, I brought that up another a little while back, but you could argue at 1A, 1B, but the guy goes to a competitive league and could have possibly won like Player of the Month
yeah.
immediately.
The, let's see if he sustains it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like, look, I mean, I don't root against anyone, so let's see. I hope he does because he's obviously his peak at Ajax was very good. I mean, I would say the La Liga is probably easier than the Prem. I mean, because you got to look like fifth place in the Prem is like you're looking at Chelsea, Man City. Fifth place in the Liga,
That's
you're looking
fair.
at Villarreal. So there's
That's
a
fair.
massive difference there.
To
Um,
You're right. Let's pretend for a moment if we extrapolate further though. Let's pretend, let's say the bottom five teams. And now I don't know, right? Because I don't
yeah,
watch them, but just as a theoretical thing, right? A thought experiment. Bottom
yeah.
five teams in each league. I don't know. I wonder if it's the same. Do the Prem teams overall, are they kind of dominant over the other teams, or vice versa, or are they equal? Like I don't know, right?
What we could do for fun, and this is a good future episode idea, and not to say this is a definitive scientific way to do it. One of the easiest ways to do it, that's like a low hanging fruit,
Hmm.
is we could pick the fifth from bottom team at both leagues and see how many international players they have on the squad. That's a decent indication. Like how many
Okay.
players on this team are playing international football for their countries. I think that's a decent indicator of the level. I mean, it's
Could
not
it be?
it's
Yeah.
imperfect, but it's still
There
valuable.
might be one issue just the first thing that comes to mind as a possible issue, if nothing else, is the fact that the Spanish teams have probably a much higher percentage of Spanish players versus the Prem teams probably have a much more diverse set of players from all sorts of different countries. So that could actually be a big issue. I
Yeah,
would imagine like
that's fair.
most of the league is like the percentage of Spanish players in La Liga must be way higher than even like English players in the Prem compared to other nations. I would imagine. Actually, that's another thing we could look into because I could be wrong
Yeah.
about that, but that'd be my guess. That'd
Yeah,
be my
no,
guess.
you're probably right. You're probably right. Yeah, I think Italy would be even more so that there are even more Italian players in Italy.
You know, yeah, probably, but I do notice in I do notice that Italy does have a quite a I notice a lot of different nations, but maybe there's very few players from each nation in like it's a one-off. But I notice a lot of those like completely
Yeah,
relatively obscure nations as far as populations go. There are a lot of those in Italy, but no, you're right. Italy is going to have a ton of Italian players. Obviously, League One is going to have a very high percentage of French players. I think if I
yeah.
had to guess, the Prem might be the
Let's
most
see.
diverse, but um,
Uh, let's see if I'm gonna type. This is actually fun. So it's actually fun to do a lot sometimes. Percentage
sure,
of local players in top leagues.
true, yeah, yeah. If it pulls up an
Okay, so I'm
accurate,
pulling this up now.
mhm.
Okay, yeah, I mean, so even if it's relatively react, so the Prem is 38%, and this is just a quick look. I mean,
Yeah,
Prem
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah,
38, Syria 38, League One 42, Bundesliga 47, and La Liga 60%.
yeah, way higher than
So
La Liga.
yeah,
It
and
stands out.
this is just a quick Google search, right? So I
Yeah,
can't verify this, but this is
but we'll assume
reasonable.
it's
Yeah,
accurate enough that well, the main
yeah,
takeaway is La Liga is by far,
yeah.
yeah,
So you're right
more.
about that.
Yeah, compared to all the others. But anyways,
Yeah,
yeah. You know what? We'll
yeah,
we'll 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 reopen that. That'd be yeah, we'll reopen that. It'd be cool to try to compare throughout the whole table of each league and but
yeah,
it's hard too, right? If they don't play each other, it's hard to do that. But okay,
for
let's
sure.
let's shift to Barcelona versus Benfica. This was a crazy one. Go ahead and get us started with this.
Yeah, I was at like a conference. I was in an Uber, and the Uber was listening to the game. And I'm like, you know what, this is great. And obviously the red card. I mean, look, Barcelona has to win this tie with the season that they're having. How special La Liga is. They are obligated to win the tie. The fact that they did. I mean, Rafinha is having an insane
Yeah,
season.
yeah.
So this is what I mean when I say the Ballon d'Or race, because that kind of performance, that kind of goal in a game of that magnitude, that's the kind of thing that you start to creep up
Hmm.
in the race. That's a big goal and a big moment, right? Um,
True.
and there's still a lot to be decided. But hey, if Rafinha finishes the season with their 15 goals and Barcelona wins the double,
Yeah.
it's
And
not
if
so clear
and if
cut.
somehow Liverpool gets knocked out early or like something goes really wrong in the second
Yeah,
leg of this round of 16, yeah, which I don't and I'll just say this would be another thing we could talk about, especially when the Ballon d'Or you know, time rolls around. As true as that is what you're saying, I don't fully agree with I don't think I like how strongly weighted like a certain game performances are versus the rest of a campaign. But I kind of get it. It just feels like a player can perform at a historic level like Salah for like say 80-90% of a campaign and it's almost like you have a final exam like it's weighted the final exam is weighted for like 80% of the grade almost like if you just knock it out of the park in the final one test out of like 100 quizzes assignments this and that it feels like it's do or die the last exam is weighted at an unreal weight. That's I
yeah,
haven't worded it like that before. I haven't even really thought of it like that before, but that's kind of how it feels. And I don't know if that's right. And there's some gray area there
yeah. I
for
mean,
me.
it's a philosophical in a way discussion and argument. It's hard to say, but in many ways, the season does start now, right? These are the biggest games, and most players will agree that the sport, even though it's not truly, and I don't look at it like this, like the sport is about trophies. If you have a great season and you fall short of trophies, it's not going to be remembered in the same way.
Yeah.
It's just the nature of it. People don't like rarely
Yeah.
remember who finishes second. Although that's
Yeah.
not always
But
true. When you have epic title races with City and Liverpool, you know who finishes second, but the title is what counts,
the gray
in
area
large
comes
part.
in where it's very much a team sport. If you want to compare it just off the cuff to a sport like let's say basketball or I don't
Yeah.
know if hockey would apply, but in basketball, superstars dominate the league and they have more impact on the game.
Yeah.
I would argue that in a game of soccer with 11 players, I
Yeah.
would argue that the superstars, as crazy of an impact as they have, especially when you're talking about Messi, Ronaldo, etc., the individual average impact of an individual player is not as high as, say, a LeBron, a Steph Curry, a KD on their respective teams.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Salah is
yeah,
way ahead. I mean, but it's just to say like results like that, a goal, that's the kind of thing that you start to rack up
yeah,
big performances like that. Then it becomes the waters become more muddy.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
Salah's way ahead. Like
yeah. And I
still,
do agree.
nonetheless.
It should be weighted more. The real question is how much more should it be weighted? I do agree it should be weighted more. In bigger games, if you show up, it helps your team advance or win
Hmm.
competitions in the crucial games. You know, it does deserve to be weighted more. That makes sense. I have no qualms about that. Okay, so Barcelona Benfica. So yeah, Rafinha had an insane goal. This guy, I mean, it wasn't he got the ball handed to him, but
Yeah.
for him to finish that is like world class. Very, very few players are finishing that. He shot from pretty far out. There were still, from what I recall, two defenders in his vicinity in front of him. I mean, he basically had to score through the goalie and two defenders. So he was on his own on an island still. He did get
No, it's an
gifted the
amazing
ball,
finish.
but
I mean, he's got
insane.
9 goals and 4 assists in the Champions League this year.
Mhm.
It's actually quite fun to open up stuff live.
Yeah.
I mean, to think about his numbers, right? He's got 13 goals and he's got 25 goals in 40 games for a winger, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Like, there's still the most important part of the season is still to be played, right?
True.
So there's so much that the big players have to come out now, right?
Yeah.
The reality is what Mbappe did to Man City. It's true that if they lose against Real Madrid, it will be, unfortunately, it's not going to be remembered in the same way. But nonetheless,
Sure.
it's still absolutely epic. But if he has a couple more performances like that in big games, he's going to shoot right up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's the big
It's like
games
a
that
it's
matter
like a,
most.
also a recency bias to this as well. Yeah. People
Yeah,
easily
yeah,
forget what happened for the rest of the campaign as well, or they don't value it as
yeah,
much.
for sure. Yeah, there's all sorts of factors at play. It's definitely an interesting conversation. Just
Yeah.
this, just yeah, for us
Yeah,
fans to
unreal. I
have.
wonder what'll happen in the second leg. I mean, now Barcelona is obviously heavily favored. I don't off the top of my head, I'm forgetting whether they played at home or away, but I don't put
They're playing at home in the
so
next leg. They
yeah,
have
yeah, yeah,
I mean, anything can happen. 1-0 is not insurmountable, but they have to finish the job. I
yeah.
mean, they've been,
And they shut down Benfica. I mean, they won by the same margin as they did in their other game that a number of weeks ago.
yeah,
But yeah, 1-0 win with a red card, by the way, early in the game, which is
yeah,
I'll state the obvious here. Insanely different than a red card in the 75th minute or the 80th
yeah.
minute or the 85th. For a team to
Hmm.
play a man down and shut out a decent team that scored 4 goals on them the last time they played, about whatever, a month ago or so. Like,
Yeah,
and that kind of comes, well, we could talk about the red card. It also is reminding me as a separate mini topic we should touch on briefly. There's a bit of controversy with the Konate red card. That was a gray area. You could call it no card or no foul on it, but you could also have called a foul. Other players have probably been called for the same thing, like the same exact type of defensive play, and been either carded. Well, in that, because it's outside the box and he's the last man, it automatically becomes a red. If it's a foul, it's an automatic red.
right.
I believe. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
at a
we
certain,
could just
yeah.
go to that. I don't know if you have any opinion on
Yeah,
that.
I didn't see I actually didn't see it closely. I mean, at a certain point, you got like two refs who, like, this is their job, like they're trained in this. Like, at a certain point, you got to have faith that, like, these people reviewing
Sure.
it, they
Yeah.
can see it clearly and they're making the best possible decision.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, everyone, like, like any decision of any value, not everyone's going to agree.
Yeah. And I
But at a
will
certain
say,
point, it's
yeah,
like
and
there's
I will
diminishing
say,
returns.
I think the main argument that people have in favor of calling it a foul is that it almost looked like he was shoving him, but when you look back at it, I actually feel like he
Mhm.
didn't shove his hands like he didn't push off him. He's just such a big guy and sort of not stumble into him. It was he made
Yeah,
it smooth enough and subtle enough that he clearly physically impacted the forward from behind him, directly behind him, not side to side shoulder barge or anything like that.
right.
He really affected him, threw him off from behind him, but it's almost just like uh he didn't use his limbs at all. He just sort of like nudged him off, and I guess it's not a foul that way. Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be a clear and obvious error, right? That's like the terminology they use. So it has to be an egregiously incorrect call to overturn it. It
Yeah,
has
yeah.
to be so abundantly clear, whatever that actually means, that 80% of people would agree or
Sure.
90% of
Yeah.
people would agree, whatever that means,
You're
right?
right. You're right.
So
Yeah.
that's also part of it.
True. So yeah, we'll see how Benfica do in the second leg of that, but most likely Barcelona goes through, and I think we can shift to Dortmund versus Lille. I don't know if you actually
Yes.
watched. I only watched
Yemi
like a
scored a great
15-minute
goal.
review of it, but yeah,
Yeah.
that was a nice finish.
I
Yes.
love that Yemi. Yeah, I think that yeah, I watched the highlights as well. I mean, it's anyone at 1-1. It's anyone's game. I think Dortmund will advance. I know I picked Lille to go through, I believe, and I did that because of Jonathan David, and he's still fully capable. And they're still, it's not just him, obviously. Lille is capable of winning the tie. There's no
Yeah.
question. But yeah, I have a feeling that Dortmund with this result will go through. I think that's
Yeah.
not that my prediction can't change, but
Sure,
that's what I
sure.
would say.
And it's also a bit fitting that the teams that probably, as far as betting odds go, were the closest um together were the only team that
Mhm.
tied in that leg of games. And actually I think every other favored team won. So
Now, I will say the following that the game was very close. The game was in Dortmund, and that Lille did have a bit of a cleaner game looking at the game stats, right?
mm,
So this is something that we knew going in that this is a coin flip in a sense.
mhm,
Um, I just feel like
still
Dortmund's
is.
been here before. They made the final last time. They're in survival mode because they're not doing well in the league. They do have a lot of top talent, and yeah, I have a feeling that they will advance.
Well, we'll
But
see.
yeah, we'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see.
And I guess Lille has something to play for too, because they're probably out of the spotlight. They're sort of in PSG's shadow over in League One, and maybe they have something to prove as well. But yeah,
Yeah, well, they're
it's
they're, they're
anyone's
fighting
game.
for the right to return to the Champions League because right now they're in fifth
Mm,
place on 41 points, and Nice is on 46 points, and that's the Champions League threshold for France. So Lille and Dortmund are actually in very similar positions in their
mhm,
respective leagues. You could argue they're slightly underperforming. They both have like some top attacking talent. Like
mhm.
Garassi's having a great season, David's having a great season. So yeah, we'll see.
Cool. Yeah. And then okay, so this was an interesting one. We had the same um prediction with this, and we were both wrong so far, and probably will be wrong in the end, which is Leverkusen versus Bayern Munich.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a destruction. I mean, yeah, it's Bayern. Yeah, it's Bayern's time. They are returning to the throne in Germany. Xabi Alonso was talking about how we had to think about the Liverpool comeback when they came back from 3-0 in the game. I mean, it's gonna be. I don't see Bayern Munich. Kimmich just signed a new contract. He's gonna be a Bayern for, like, he's probably feeling good. He's having Kimmich is very impressive. Like whenever I watch Bayern play, the way he pings those passes around, like, yeah, I mean, Leverkusen doesn't have a chance,
No,
unfortunately. I
yeah,
mean,
for
we
sure.
can all be proven wrong, but
Sure. Well, after
you
that
know,
result, it was a pretty solid 3-0 win. So
comprehensive. That's
yeah,
comprehensive. Bayern's feeling it this year,
yeah,
and I mean, yeah, I think I want Bayern Inter
true.
that's a
That's a spicy.
proper last eight tie.
True.
Um, and Harry Kane's having like I said, like I got a soft spot for Harry Kane. He's just a truly impressive specimen, and he does deserve to have these moments.
Yeah.
To go on and play big
Yeah. He
games,
had a very nice
and
goal
he's
in
having a great
the game.
year. Yeah,
And
he's
you
got
saw
9
his
goals in the
goal. I
Champions
don't know
League.
if you watched again the full game, or like at least I'm sure you watched the whole,
Put a
bit of the
pen in a
package.
goal. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. His actual non-penalty goal was actually, if I recall correctly, his penalty was insane as far as penalties go as well. I don't know if you recall. I think he had a very nice hesitation, and then the goalie bit on it a little bit, and then he slotted it top shelf with power. Like
he's
no
lethal when it's
chance. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, like if it's coming off of his foot, it's like whatever he does is turns to gold, right? Despite his mobility limitations, he's
yeah,
such an elite finisher.
yeah.
Um, and
True,
yeah, he's 31 as well. You know,
true.
he's got more goals than games for Bayern Munich, so he's kind of
That's
following
pretty crazy.
Lewandowski
Yeah, yeah.
in that kind of realm, right? These top strikers, they just when you come to a team like Bayern where the Bundesliga is not super strong, that's you do work. So
True.
we'll see. Inter will be a different type of test, and I do think it will be
Yeah,
Inter. I think Inter won 2-0 away, which
yeah.
I don't want to get ahead
Which
of it.
no, it's a
Yeah,
perfect, bleed into the next tie. Yeah,
yeah,
Inter and Feyenoord.
yeah. That tie's done. I mean, they're gonna finish the job in Milan. Inter's way too disciplined. Squad's way too deep. They will finish the job, and they'll very likely play Bayern, and that's a great match. Like
True.
historically, in the current context,
Yeah.
that's an exciting one. And yeah, no, that's a must watch. Like if both those, if it's Barcelona, Dortmund, Barcelona, Lille, or Bayern, Inter, like I would watch Bayern, Inter if I had to choose between them. I think
Fascinating.
that's
Yeah, well,
that's
that's reasonable. Yeah, it's totally
yeah.
reasonable. Also, Inter,
Predicting
both of
that's
them.
hard though.
Yeah, yeah, both of their goals were nice, especially Marcus Thuram, who I have watched him play in the past, even though I don't watch a ton as much as I don't watch as much as you do, for example. And I was unimpressed with him for a while there. Maybe he was just completely out of form. He was completely unimpressive for a number of matches. And then I mean he scores an insane goal. And I don't know much. I don't keep close track as to like individual players' performances, especially in Serie A or
Mhm.
Marcus Thuram. It's not like I keep
Yeah,
tabs on those kind of players, but his goal was insane. And to be fair, a lot of the goals in this leg were actually insane if you think about it. All three goals in the Madrid um, derby
yeah,
were insane. Even Lautaro's goal was very clinical. He just got that ball, one touch turn, bury it type of thing. You referred to Adeyemi's goal, and I mean, I'm trying to recall
that was
more
a
of them,
crazy
but
goal.
yeah, a lot of the goals were world class goals in this leg.
I love that AME. Yeah, no, Turam is not the most prolific scorer in the world, but he works very hard for the team and he pairs up really well with Lautaro. It's a great pairing. I mean,
True.
the proof is
Yeah,
in the pudding, right? Like the
makes
work that they
sense.
do in Syria. So
Makes sense.
it's very, very interesting. We'll see. And he came from, Mönchengladbach, which is just like a upper mid-table team in Germany. So to come from there, be playing more for France, being a starter for Inter, which is a deep team,
Yeah,
and he's only 27. I mean, he still has a lot ahead of him. So
true.
he's a
And
proper player.
in his defense, I think if I recall correctly, he won a Player of the Month award maybe in the first month of the campaign this year as well, if I'm recalling correctly. So I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying from what I watched
Yep.
from him at some point in time, I was very unimpressed at a point in time. But I
Yeah.
mean, for to win a Player of the Month award and also to score a crazy goal like that in the Champions League, like those are impressive things. So
100%.
yeah, I mean, if Holland, who's another player who's that big, athletic kind of guy who would score a goal like that, those sort of not bicycle kicks, but like athletic sort of, you know, for lack of a better term, let's say MMA style kicks, like
Yeah.
uh, the whole world will be sort of talking about that, and that's what Marcus Thuram did and put him up 1-0 in a 2-0 win. And if that didn't
Yeah.
happen, who knows? Is the game a little bit closer or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think he's in the top three goal scorers in Serie A right now. Like he's having a good year. I mean, Inter's really solid. I mean, it's no coincidence they made it to play against Man City a couple of years back,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So they're
true,
flying the flag for Italy. So I'm rooting for them from that perspective.
true, cool. Okay, I think that was a solid recap. I think we covered every aspect of this first leg that we could want to.
Okay.
So yeah,
Sweet.
that was good.
Yeah, I can't wait for the second. I mean, yeah, second legs. I think Tuesday. I mean, you and I have a soccer game. I think that's the PSG Liverpool game. That's fun. As much like, the funny thing is, as much as like it's at Anfield, like not, that's gonna be a good game. That's a big game.
True.
That is a big game. I'm very excited for that. And then obviously Wednesday, the Real Madrid. I mean, yeah, those are
Yeah,
for me, those are the two matches. Like
yeah,
those are the must watch matches if you're only gonna watch two games.
yeah.
So I'm very, very excited. And they're both still alive, right? So it's like it's a beautiful thing. This
You're
is
right.
why like, this is peak soccer. So
Yeah,
very exciting.
yeah. Oh, I would say the majority of the games, the majority of the matchups are still like any team can pull it out. But yeah, those two are going to be the most fascinating ones. They have the most on the line, basically.
Yeah,
Cool,
it's a great time of the year.
cool, cool, cool.
Can't wait.
All right. So for anyone who's listening, we'll be back with episode 4, and we'll decide then exactly what the topic will be. And
Yep.
hope you guys enjoy hanging with us. Yeah, we'll call it there, I
Great
think.
chat. Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Peace.
Talk to you guys soon.